Yes, that's right. Anakin is back, and Star Wars is actually giving fans the Clone Wars in live action. And look, you can say it's member berries or flashing keys to the audience who will laugh and point like a baby, and you know what? I'm not gonna tell you that you're wrong to feel that way. But listen, for me, I'm still along for the ride, and I also feel like Star Wars has not done the best job giving fans what they want as of late. And obviously it's a balance of story needs versus fan desires, but too often it feels like recent stories have had missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And here, I'm just happy to get a win. I'm happy that they actually decided to do something cool. I feel like without having seen this episode first, if somebody had just told me that they heard this was going to happen, I'd have a hard time believing it simply because it's too cool and it would be giving the fans too much of what they want. And that's a bad place to be. It's not good that I would make those assumptions. And so yes, this is cool. If you are a Clone Wars fan, if you grew up watching the Clone Wars TV show, you get something to really appreciate here. Thank you for doing something fun, because sometimes I forget what that feels like. And as I'm doing here, you can overanalyze the plot, the production, whatever. But just judging something off how much you enjoyed spending your time with it, I have to praise this episode. Also, just a quick disclaimer, this video will contain my opinion and my current interpretation. I think the events in this episode are up for interpretation. So if you got something different from it, I don't think you're wrong. If you watch the show's creator do interviews, Dave Filoni will actually talk about how he likes storytelling that allows the audience to draw their own conclusions about things. So that's what I did. Okay, the previous episode, episode 4 of Ahsoka, ends showing us Anakin. Now, entering into episode 5, we are sufficiently teased by the promise of this generational icon returning once again.
He's back! He's back!
So of course, we begin right in the action. Anakin and Ahsoka, hashing it out. Nah, I'm just kidding. Episode 5 opens on sweeping vistas of that red forest from Cetos, with contemplative music. But hey, it's pretty. Hera and Jacen arrive too late to find only a solitary Huyang mourning the recent defeat. And then, after some title cards, it's finally time to catch up with Anakin and Ahsoka. First off, the de-aging on Anakin looks much better and more natural this week than in the previous episode. The last episode had me worried, but this is actually pretty well done. Better than I expected it would be. Anakin and Ahsoka's conversation starts, and Ahsoka just wants to know what's happening. Anakin tells her, "You lost a fight, but still have a chance to live." He further tells her that he's here to finish her training and that one is never too old to learn. So what's the lesson?
Live or die.
Ahsoka says, "I won't fight you." And Anakin's response of, quote, "I've heard that before," seems to be a clue that this is actually Anakin and not just part of Ahsoka's imagination. Ahsoka wouldn't know that Luke said that same line to Vader during their duel on the Death Star from Return of the Jedi, but this Anakin does. The two begin to clash lightsabers, and Anakin looks so good with his choreography. He moves so similarly to how he did in Revenge of the Sith, and it just reminded me of how all the lightsaber fighting now just feels a little slower. I guess you could say it emphasizes in universe how powerful Anakin is, that he just seems to move differently, but I think it probably just has more to do with how much behind the scenes training Hayden Christensen did in preparing for those prequel fights. Seriously, if you don't believe me, go back and watch some of the behind the scenes stuff with him. It's a little inspiring. We cut to Jacen sitting and watching the waves while Hera, Huyang, and Carson try to figure out what happened to Ahsoka and Sabine. Jacen tells Hera to listen towards the waves, and she'll hear lightsabers. This, of course, is Anakin and Ahsoka clashing lightsabers nearby, but within the world between worlds. So Hera does listen, and she hears it, which I thought was a little strange. Hera isn't force sensitive, so why can she hear that too? Anyway, this cues them to start searching the ocean for Ahsoka. But now it's back to Anakin, and he starts with his signature saber twirl. that made me smile, into eventually cutting the floor out from under Ahsoka. If you go back to the beginning of their fight, you'll actually notice that Anakin starts on the opposite side of their bridge with the dead end behind him, but then he actually walks past Ahsoka, thus flipping their positions, which allows him to back her up towards the dead end during the course of their fight. This shows that he is in command of their surroundings and that it was his plan from the start to knock her off the walkway. As she falls through the clouds, it looks similar to Gandalf falling off the bridge while fighting the Balrog. Is that on purpose? I don't know. But see, that's the problem with telling everyone you were inspired to make Ahsoka like Gandalf. You start seeing comparisons with everything. But, like how Gandalf fought the Balrog, this is obviously Ahsoka's journey of rebirth to gain enlightenment and enter back into the world of the living, but now with new confidence and power. She falls straight down into reliving a battle from the Clone Wars. Alright, now is it a full recreation? Well, the sets are all obscured by a thick cloud of smoke or fog. It's a bit disappointing, but it works within the story since this is a Force vision. Practically, it helps them save on production costs, but they also use the fog to present some really cool visuals later in the episode. And Hayden plays the role really well. He does a good job mixing in aspects of the animated character into his live action performance. The young Ahsoka actress also did well. It was nice to see the character act with a little more personality and less stoicism. But while it may appear to be a young Ahsoka on the outside, this is clearly the older Ahsoka's mind that's been dropped into these memories. We see the aftermath of a Clone Wars battle, and Ahsoka is struck by the dead and wounded around her. She feels an immense grief, and this must be bringing back powerful emotions to relive this part of her life again. As basically a child, Ahsoka was thrust into a war and forced to encounter immense loss and regret. Responsibilities and experiences that someone at any age would struggle with, but especially being so young, these were formative, traumatic events in her life. And now this show is trying to present this to general audiences who may not have watched Clone Wars or Rebels. In the scene, Ahsoka asks Anakin why he isn't bothered by it all, as she looks around at the war unfolding around them. He acknowledges that he is, but that this is war. And right now, she has to adapt, to be a soldier. Ahsoka asks if that's what she'll have to teach her Padawan, to be a soldier. And Anakin diffuses the situation with a joke. This makes Ahsoka angry, but Anakin is trying to show her that finding ways to laugh, to enjoy things, even within dark times, that's important. It's better than the alternative, and current day Ahsoka has forgotten this. It's why she's so emotionless, aloof, and in some ways already dead inside. By the way, it's kind of haunting when Anakin asks her if instead of joking, she'd prefer he be more serious. Coming from him, the alternative is Darth Vader. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone else who's better at taking things too seriously, forgetting to take time to enjoy things, and letting dark emotions like fear, guilt, and anger dominate their life. But this scene also speaks to the inner doubt that Ahsoka has. She feels incriminated for participating in the Clone Wars, and doesn't believe that she can or should train a Padawan. We haven't seen what caused Ahsoka and Sabine to grow apart originally, but I'd say it's probably a safe assumption that Ahsoka played a big role in pushing Sabine away, because whether she's consciously aware of it or not, she doesn't believe in herself as a worthy teacher. Personally, I don't know that the Ahsoka-Sabine relationship is working for me in this show, but it's obviously a big theme of it, that is the master and apprentice dynamic, and specifically the one between Ahsoka and Sabine. So I do think they're trying to bring in lessons here that will help Ahsoka in this dynamic. But Anakin ends their exchange here by stating that in order to survive, she has to fight. Regardless of how she wants things to be, she needs to accept the way things are and stop paralyzing herself in self-doubt. Anakin then swaggers off into the continuing battle, and through the fog, the music swells, and we see him surrounded by troopers while flashing to Vader. Really cool shot. And we're back to Hera and Carson sweeping the coastline for signs of Ahsoka, but to no avail. And Hera makes a comment about how she's a lousy general, and I rolled my eyes. This is the second time this episode she's made a comment about being a general. I swear, her character is, I'm a general.
Some general I am.
I'll cover it. What good is a high rank if you can't use it every now and then?
I'm a general. Nothing's classified to me. Well, when you're a general, you can disobey orders too.
When the scene shifts back to Ahsoka, we're at the Siege of Mandalore. So they've jumped us from the start of the Clone Wars to now the end of it. And they do a wonderful job showcasing Ahsoka's fighting style from the animated series. She moves with speed, purpose, and an acrobatic flair. And I'll also say that in this live action depiction, she just feels really young, which I guess makes sense, but when watching the animated version, she just felt older. If you've watched the Clone Wars Season 7, it's weird to think that this is the Ahsoka that has to fight Darth Maul. And there's also a Rex cameo here, which I appreciate. I'm glad it's there. He's actually in one of the other scenes too, and it's nice that they show him in different clone trooper armor phases, but his appearance ultimately doesn't amount to much, and he's quickly hurried out of view. Anakin joins her after the battle and says that she did well here. She's the warrior that he trained her to be. He goes on to say that she's part of a legacy, and here I couldn't help but feel that the show is trying to make a point to the general audiences about how they should view Ahsoka, that she is an important character, even if not shown in the films. Hey person at home who may not have watched Clone Wars or Rebels, the titular character of this series is Ahsoka. She is Anakin's apprentice, she carries his mantle, and she traces a legacy from Anakin to Obi-Wan to Qui-Gon to Count Dooku and to Yoda. But also, yes, Anakin is trying to communicate to her that legacy and the passing of knowledge to the next generation is a noble thing. However, Ahsoka rejects the idea of this legacy, saying that she has only inherited death and war. Anakin tells her that she's wrong, that she has inherited more than only death and war from him. To this, she responds, "Yeah, but what about Darth Vader, Anakin? What about that?"
Like you trained his father?
Anakin seems to become somewhat offended here and says, "Is that what this is about?"
Is that what this is about?
Okay, so remember, this whole vision is about Ahsoka needing to find the will to live. Keep in mind, on the outside right now, she was just defeated in battle and is floating in a realm between life and death. Anakin is here, trying to help her overcome her doubts, to let go of her past guilt, and to find a renewed purpose in life, to make that decision, to pick herself back up and continue his legacy. But I think the reason Anakin seems to be annoyed here is because he's upset that the mistakes he made in his life would so heavily contribute to her self-doubt. He's over here like, "Ahsoka, you're in a life or death situation. It is not your time. You're knocking at death's door too soon. You shouldn't be in this position right now. You've lost your way, but I'm here to help you. Let's revisit your unresolved past, your trauma, and learn from it. Don't be so hard on yourself. Remember to enjoy life. Focus on what you can actually control, not on what you wish you could control. You're worthy. Please go carry on your legacy." And in response, through it all, while Anakin's trying to communicate these things to her, she is so utterly hung up on the fact that he became Darth Vader, which, don't get me wrong, that is a perfectly understandable place for her to be in right now. But Anakin says to her, "You've learned nothing. Let's go back to the beginning. I gave you a choice, live or die." And again, what I think he's trying to say with that's what this is about line is, Ahsoka, this isn't about me. This is about you. Stop worrying about me. We're here trying to help you find the strength to keep going. But I think what he's now realized is, okay, if your big problem is Darth Vader, if that's what you need to overcome to find inner peace and make the choice to keep living, then I'll show you Darth Vader.
I gave you a choice. Live or die.
Because Anakin ignites a red lightsaber blade and starts attacking Ahsoka. There's another amazing shot of him kicking her through the fog and then walking towards her and again flashing to Vader. Ultimately, Ahsoka disarms Anakin, who is in full Vader mode, and looks him straight in the Sith eyes. It's just her with a lightsaber and him. And she stands there, directly faces her greatest fear, and then tosses away the lightsaber she's holding. and she says, "I choose to live." In this moment, she doesn't strike him down, she doesn't run away, she embraces her fear and doesn't let that fear control her. Then she watches, and I think it's important that she sees it happen in front of her as Anakin steps back and slowly transforms from Darth Vader back to Anakin. She's seeing the capacity for light and dark represented together. In life, we cannot get rid of all darkness, but we can control how we react to it, and we can learn to not live in fear of it. I think she's coming to accept at a deep core level that people are flawed, life is complex and difficult, but what matters is finding that way to keep going and to pass on your legacy. Her legacy is more than death and war, but those are burdens that she will carry. And with Anakin gone, Ahsoka leaves the world between worlds, this realm between life and death, and is returned to the ocean where Hera and the others find her. There's obviously a lot of rebirth symbolism for Ahsoka here, and do I wish that she and Anakin would have had more of an opportunity to have a real conversation instead of cryptic read between the lines back and forth? Yes, I do. I think that would have been more cathartic for fans. However, by leaving it more cryptic, it leaves it more vague for individual interpretation. This very well could have all been in her head, and none of it actually happened. There's a case to be made for that, absolutely. However, that said, I do think she was in the world between worlds, with at least some version of Anakin's spirit. That's why they used the world between worlds as a setting. That's why she was able to access her memories in this way. That's why Jason could hear the struggle through the Force. And it's why she didn't die sinking under the waves for all that time. Oh man, there's a lot more to this episode, but oh my god, this video is already going to be way too long. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. So, Ahsoka has overcome her fears and comes to terms with her past on a journey to find inner peace. I think we can expect that she will also be much more effective with training any future students.
Ahsoka, within you will be everything I am. All the knowledge I possess. Just as I inherited knowledge from my master, and he from his. We're part of a legacy.
Ahsoka Tano's apprentice is on the Thal. You're looking for Sabine Wren.
You win this round.
We're part of a legacy.